and we are live. What's going on? What's going on? Welcome back to Western Star movie reviews, stuff like that, TV, whatever you want to call it. Host HJW Hunter James West. Um, and this is another episode, another week, another Wednesday of new reviews, possibly some news, and a little bit of some TV stuff that I have going for it. And so today we're gonna be talking about all that. Also, if you are new, please don't forget to remember that I post every week, or that stream live every week on Wednesday at 12 o'clock. Might go for an hour, might go for less. Just want to get out all the things that I've done over the weekend. And I have a little bit of news to tell you. I didn't get a lot of things done this weekend because a lot of things have happened going on. But not like big things. But I have one review. It's a new film. It's a Liam Neeson movie called Memory that I talked about last weekend. And I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna be ranking all the October films that I saw that came out in October. So not some of the films that I had to watch that came out like months ago that I finally got to watch in October. No, I'm gonna rank all the movies that I saw in October that released in October. And then I'm going to be reviewing finally why I love the Wilds so much. And I'm going to do every week now Wilds episode. Possibly, I don't think I can do every episode. I think Wednesday. I think we have Wednesday off, November 23rd. So I might do 2 episodes next week, or maybe 3. I don't know, no idea. But I want to be able to give you a review on that, even though the show's not coming back. We have some news on about a popular HBO show that's not continuing anymore. I don't Not gonna spoil it, but yeah. So let's get started with the review of the Liam Neeson film that I have. And then we're gonna do the ranking of all the movies that I saw in October, that released in October. So this does not count because this movie, Memory, released in April 29th. So Memory is another Liam Neeson action movie. It's directed by Martin Campbell. And this guy actually is well known because he did a lot of interesting films. He directed films like Goldeneye. He directed Mask of Zorro, which I think got good reviews. Yeah. Then he also did The Legend of Zorro. Wait, did that get the reviews? Oh, no, no. Um, but he also directed Casino Royale, uh, Edge of Darkness, which is Mel Gibson movie that I thought I heard of, but then, and the one that's probably the most notable is Green Lantern, which was the DC's first attempt um after they had to redo everything because the movie bombed horribly. And then he also did some other movies, The Foreigner with Jackie Chan and The Protege that came out last year with Maggie Q. So now you have Liam Neeson combined with that guy, and he made some good action movies. Actually, 3 probably some of the best action movies that people have said. With Casino Royale, one of the best in the Bond franchise. Then you have the the GoldenEye, which is probably to many people the best one. And then you have Legend of Zorro or Master of Zorro, whichever one. You have Master Zorro as great action movies. So then you got Liam Neeson, who's an action star, who's doing a lot of action movies. Not all of them are good. They're quite forgettable, especially Blacklight. And so this was streaming on Prime Video. It was released in theaters on April 29th, 2022. It had a modest budget of 30 to around $43 million, and it did badly. It grossed 13.6 million, so it was overall a box office bomb, much as Neeson's other film, Blacklight. So that's that is absolutely something to note. And so this movie is about a as a hitman played by Neeson who suffers with dementia, and he must go on the run after he declines a contract to kill a young girl. Like there's a young girl in the movie that he has to shoot and kill. She's like 13. He doesn't want to do it because he doesn't hurt children. And now he he's kind of on the run because they think, oh, this guy's the one who's trying to kill all these people. It's like, no, there's somebody else. I'm being framed. Somebody else did this. And so it's kind of like a mystery movie at the same time. This also stars Guy Pearce, Marco Bellucci, Harold Torres, Taj Atwell, and Ray Farron, as well as Ray Stevenson. So I was not the biggest fan of Blacklight. Actually, I think I was the biggest hater of Blacklight. One of the biggest haters. Um, that was absolutely terrible. It was terrible. It didn't work. And so, you have a movie that's coming out 2 months after Neeson's bomb in the box office with Blacklight. You got a director that's well known, director of Casino Royale and Martin and you know, Goldeneye, and you have Guy Pearce, who's a great actor as well, who normally in movies plays the villain, but he doesn't play the villain at all in this movie, which is surprising. So, is the movie good? I would say it's not, but it's not a terrible movie. Like I think that this film it does certain things that it definitely it's a boring film. It's an hour and 50 minutes, and normally for an action movie like this, it's kind of a little bit boring. Although I wasn't terribly bored with this movie. I think that there are some bright spots in this movie. The writing is much better than Blacklight, although the writing is not as good as what it can be. The acting is much better. There's some well-known actors in this movie rather than you have Blacklight, which you only know Liam Neeson, and then all the other people are like actors from the street. And so that's kind of the vibe that I was getting at. You have an R rating, so there's better action, and it does have good action with like a lot of dark things to it, like people getting shot and like you can see the blood instead of like a PG-13 one with blacklight, which I actually never knew it was PG-13, but it is. And so you have this movie where it's like they're going for the hard R action type, and it works. But there's also some things in the movie that it's predictable, it's cliche. You kind of expect who the real villain is, what's going on, and then they try to pull out all these other things by the end of the movie in which it's like, oh, well, actually, what happened is this. Yet we see nothing of that. We don't know anything about it. I don't think the film tells us about this early on when we're introduced to these characters that are revealed to be the villains, but it's not that bad of a film. I think that the reviews that the people were giving it were coming off of because Blacklight was terrible. It was awful. And so this movie's awful as well because nobody wants to see it. And that's the other thing. The movie bombed massively. So like and I fear like he's going to become the next Bruce Willis, Liam Neeson, where almost every single year he's going to pump out an action movie that is in theaters, no formats whatsoever, and he's going to be like, I'm going to make a modest budget. I'm going to get some people, maybe someone who's well known, and that's it. Unlike Bruce Willis, where he's just like, I want to do all these normal action movies that are straight to video, and that's not what I like. I haven't watched any Bruce Willis movies ever that were on video, straight to DVD or straight to video films, because they're not good. Because nobody reviews them. Because nobody cares about a Bruce Willis movie anymore. He's not. It's not like the Die Hard films. It's not like those, which is unfortunate. And so you get to the memory, and there's a little bit of attempt to make a good movie. You can tell that they're trying to be like, this is there. Is it a perfect film? No, but it's not the worst movie I've seen. There are definitely other films you can watch right now that are bad, that are awful. This is not one of them. Well, to some people it might. Also a huge thing I liked about this movie is Guy Pearce. He's always a great person, and he gives a good supporting role in this movie as like this guy who's head of CIA or whatever, and he's trying to be like the guy who negotiate with Liam Neeson where he's on the run. It's like, no, 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 I want to help you out. I know you're a good man. And then there's this whole idea of him, figuring things out, something like that. I don't know. The thing is, this movie will be forgettable in like a couple days, But another thing that happens in this movie that comes out of nowhere is that there's this whole thing about there's this one cop who's kind of Mexican, and the head of the CIA is like, um, you shouldn't work here because there's something happening with the Mexican little kid who got killed, and so people are doing that, and it's kind of like a little subplot, and by the end of the movie, he kind of redeems himself. So this is a very short because I don't got anything else for this movie. The action's filmed fine. The score is there. I don't like the score. It's can't really hear it. The acting's better in this movie than Blacklight. The filming is better. The editing feels a little bit choppy at sometimes. The story feels a little bit slow. It is a slow paced movie, and it does feel like the movie copies from others, and it's predictable at sometimes. But I didn't hate it. Overall, I give it a C plus. It's a 5.5 out of 10. This is an average film at best. And I wouldn't recommend if you're like a diehard Liam Neeson fan to watch it because this is one of his better movies, but it's better than some of the other ones that he's been pumping out over the past couple of years. So there's that. So let's okay. Let's talk about the other things that have been going on in the world of films, and that is ranking all the films. Hold on a minute. Yeah, ranking all the films from the worst to the best in the month of October. And so I was supposed to see 11 movies. I forgot to check out two of them. Probably will get those reviews up next week. Fortunately, they're on Netflix, so hope for the best. But um, I also saw 9 films in month. There, like I think there were only like 3 of them, or sorry, 4 of them that I saw in theaters. The rest is streaming. So there's 9 movies here, and I'm gonna be giving you guys a ranking of all the 9 movies that I saw from the worst to the best. This isn't the best list. This isn't the worst list, and so yeah. The only 2 movies I'm forgetting in this list are Meet Mr. Harrigan's Phone and Wendell and Wild, which I'm hoping to see this weekend. So, with that said, let's get into the ranking, shall we? So, let's get started. In last place is The School for Good and Evil. I'm not going to sugarcoat this enough. This is a bad movie. It's easily the worst movie of the month. It's the only movie I gave an F2. It feels to me like all the wrong ideas from young adult films, where this is trying to be like the next big franchise. You have Harry Potter vibes mixed with Twilight vibes with the romance. The dialogue feels awful, and they're trying to, you know, gear in towards older people by including actors like Lawrence Fishburne, Michelle Yeoh, Kerry Washington, Charlie Theron, and even with Charlie Theron and Michelle Yeoh, or no, Charlie Theron, they're given such these performances and these characters that are so over the top that you don't buy that they're really acting, and so that doesn't work. The main two girls that you're supposed to follow throughout the entirety of the film, that doesn't work. Their acting is choppy and feels out of place. The romance that eventually revolves around the negative girl falling in love with Prince Charming or whatever, or Telios, Tedious. Some guys I keep forgetting. I don't care. Um, Comes out of nowhere. It's like, oh, it's predictable. Then you have bad writing, random things that happen. Like a guy gets practically murdered because he fails a course 3 times and he turns into this weird beast. And this, Jesus, I'm fine. Um, but like I was saying, there's this thing where he turns into a beast and the girl apparently realizes that it's him without no explanation. It's like, oh, I know who you are. You were the one who failed the course, and then he dies. The motivations for being evil with the one of the characters is Sophie, for her turning into evil, getting to be the studious, the top dog, doesn't make sense because towards the end of the fight, she starts a fight with the girl with the both schools, and then something happens where the good side, their clothes turn into the bad ones, and then you go on the other side and the bad people turn into the good, but they're still bad and the others are still good. So what was the point of that? The motivation is off, and then when she realizes what's actually happening, she all of a sudden is like, no, I don't like that. I don't like what you're doing with two of my friends. It's like, but you just said like you just said like, no, I actually like what I'm doing. I like the new evil me. And so the motivations are off. The CGI is bad. The green screen, there's one scene of green screen that is laughably bad. And the movie ends cliched. You know they're going to set up a sequel. You know it's not going to be good. I just don't care. Like, this was the movie, I think, out of the whole month that just was like confused me and was like the WTF. Because as I'm watching it, I'm like, this movie can get better if it was handled with the action better at the end, but it's not. And so a movie that clearly fans are going to like, novel people are going to like it because it's based off of a book and it probably would do justice to the novel, but just wasn't for me. At eighth place is unfortunately Halloween Ends, and it pains me to put this so low on the list. This was an awful movie. It feels to me like the makers of Halloween 2018 said, we're going to make more movies because, as usual, when a franchise comes back, makes a bunch of money at the box office, it's like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to make 2 more films and then we're going to end it off with the third. And that's what they did with Jurassic World. Jurassic World was a return of franchise, which is people forgotten or remembered how bad the last 2 installments of Jurassic Park were. Well, I would say Jurassic Park 3. And so they did a new version that wasn't really a reboot, it was a continuation. And then you had the other 2 movies that didn't work for people. The Dominion, I thought, or Fallen Kingdom, I thought was worse, which was the sequel to that. This time around, they did the same thing, except they erased all of the Halloween movies after the first one. And it was a great return to franchise. It was what this franchise needed in 2018 when Halloween came out, and it was a big movie. And so you get to this movie where Kills was like Michael Myers is kind of like he's kind of like indestructible because he gets shot 8 times, his fingers get blown off, he survives a fire, he gets burnt a little bit, and he's still alive. Yet he's like 60 to 70 years old. He would easily like drop dead. He would need crutches, whatever. A nursery home, all senior citizens go to. Yeah. And so then you get to this movie, and we focus not on Laurie Strode and the feeling of pain from the death of her daughter. We don't feel pain from the fact that Michael Myers is still alive. We are focused now on this random character that we don't know nothing about. And so when you're given to me a character like that we just met, and this is the final film in the franchise. You could have done that in the first movie of 2018. You could have done that in Halloween Kills, but doing it now feels like, is this setting up a new franchise of Halloween films? Is Corey going to be like the new Michael Myers or something? It's like that to me was awful. It's not what they should have done. They should have done the whole like Laurie Strode is feeling pain after what happened to her daughter. And so now she has to protect her granddaughter from anything else that's happening because Michael Myers is still alive. And so that could have been a great story. But instead, they focused on something else that did not work for me. The stupidity of this movie, from the over the top bullies, high school bullies that pick on this tall 21-year-old dude, to the fact that he eventually puts on the mask himself and starts going on a killing spree on all the people who bullied him, feels completely off the tone that this trilogy was supposed to go. Like, it went from a great return, satisfying entry, to unnecessary nonsense. And so I don't think this movie was good. I think that the only reason why it's not the worst movie or it gets an F is because Jamie Lee Curtis is a powerhouse in this movie. The score is great and the kills are brutal. And her granddaughter is not that bad as well. But everything surrounding it. And I watched a review on Filmento on Halloween Ends. It essentially took 40 minutes for the actual Michael Myers to be in the movie. Like 40 actual minutes of this an hour and 51-minute movie. That's almost a third of the film done. And we focused not on Michael Myers, not on Laurie Strode, but just on Michael, on Corey and his relationship with Allison, which is Laurie's granddaughter. And so a movie that was supposed to end off on a high note, but it ended up ending on a whimper. Number 7, Pray for the Devil. And this, hold on a minute. Did I say number 9 for the last one? No, number 9 was School for Good and Evil. Number 8 was Halloween Ends. Number 7 is Pray for the Devil. And this movie is kind of there. I feel like this movie was kind of a mixed bad for me. I understand, like, it's supposed to be this, hold on a minute. I have to change something. Okay. It was supposed to be like this exorcism movie in which this girl is connected with a demon in her past that's haunting this girl now. And it played in theaters, made 7 million. It's kind of generic. You've seen this movie before. So it's kind of and then with the worst lady sitting next to me, it was bound to be low on the list. Or the two other women, or the two other teenage girls, maybe teenage girls, middle schoolers that were sitting there just on their phone talking slowly, but you can tell they were not in it. The jump scares in this movie are tedious. The performances are good. Cinematography is good. It's just a movie you've seen before. And so I don't really have anything to talk about with this movie. So yeah, that's number 7. Number 6 is Run, Sweetheart, Run. And this is another one that I actually really am sorry to put on so low on this list, is because this was a movie I actually was excited for. It stars Ella Balinska, who at the time when this movie was supposed to come out was coming off of the hit Charlie's Angels. She was getting noticeably famous for that. And so she took this role. She's a single mother who goes on a blind date set up by her boss, and he turns out to be this weird psychopathic freak that apparently kills people. And so this was supposed to be an interesting film, and I was super excited for it. It just came up a little short. I think that the characterization is awful. We know from the main 10 minutes before the actual date happens in the movie is that she's a single mother. Sherry, our main character, played by Ella Balinska, she's a single mother and she has a daughter. And she's about to go on a date. That's it. There's no backstory on her other relationships, which they kind of actually give us a little bit of info on her relationship, because towards the middle of the movie, we're introduced to this guy who she used to date, and they had a rocky relationship. And so he started dating her best friend. And it would have been cool if the movie explained it in the beginning. It still would have been great, but at least we would have known. Explaining it halfway through feels just like, you know what, you just wasted my time. The whole idea behind who this guy really is felt a little bit disappointing. They do the whole thing where it's like they cut away from the camera because it's probably not that big of a budget, so we can't show what actually is going on. But spoiler alert, he turns into this creature, and he's actually an archangel who comes down to Earth years ago to establish that men are in charge. And then it does the whole thing where it's like women are like powerful, and it's like that is a cool message. The only problem is you have to make sure that your movie explains it good, and that your movie gives me good characters, good story, and a good reason to support it. Gives us some characters, but not so much as support on their, like who they are as people. Doesn't really give us a good story, as it literally just cuts right through to the fact that she's immediately hunted by Ethan. I thought the performance from him was great because he's always playing the villain in certain movies. But another thing that I just realized that I forgot to mention is the fact that they do this weird thing with the editing. So every time, there's 3 times this happens where she's in a situation where the movie is called Run Sweetheart Run, and literally the word run with an exclamation point pops on screen. See, stuff like that just felt silly. And so a movie that I was really excited to see, hoping that it would be good, just ended up being a little bit of a disappointment, in my opinion. Number 6 is The Curse of Bridge Hollow. And just as a disclosure, I actually think that every single one of these movies doesn't get past a B. And if I saw Mr. Harrigan's Phone or Wendell and Wild, I will probably change that list. But everything about these movies is a B minus or lower. So it wasn't that great movie that I saw this month. But this movie was passable. It's a Netflix Halloween movie that I feel like is rated. They don't know what the rating is. I don't know what the rating is. It's either PG-13 or PG. It treats itself like a PG Nickelodeon Halloween film. You know those Nickelodeon movies where it would be really, very low budget, bad special effects, some noticeable actors in there from Nickelodeon, of course, but for the most part, very generic and forgettable. That's what this felt like. Marlon Wayne's, I don't classify him as funny. I don't think he's as funny. Okay, my shot jacket's there. I thought I lost it. But it's not as he's not as funny as some of these other comedians out there, so there's that. Also, I feel like this movie had very little to no resemblance as to like some of the scary things. Like they do some weird things with comedy with some of the creatures that I felt like was fine, but it's an movie. I'm not gonna watch this again. I'm not gonna talk about it again. I'm not gonna review it again. It's not the worst movie, so it's not gonna be on the worst list or the honorable mentions. It's just a movie that's plain. That's on Netflix, and it's a nice Halloween treat. Halloween obviously ended, so who cares about that anymore? So there's that. Number 5, Rosalind, and this wait a minute. Hold on a second. Did I do my list wrong? Wait a minute. One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, 8, 9. Okay. Hold on a minute. So I did that 8, 7, 6, 5. Okay. So I was just wondering. So then I had to I'm sorry. So I reviewed School for Good and Evil, that was number 9. Halloween Ends, number 8. Pray for the Devil, number 7. Run Sweetheart Run, number 6. Curse of Bridge Hollow, number 5. Okay. So my number 4 is Rosalind. This is a new Hulu original film that stars Caitlin Dever as this girl who is pretty much in love with Romeo Montague, and it's pretty much a turn on William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. And in this movie, Romeo and Juliet, they're in love together. However, this movie focuses on the ex, where Romeo was promised to go somewhere with his ex Rosalind. She turned him down, or maybe her father put her on another date with this guy, and she was supposed to go with this other guy. Again, it's a passable movie. The movie is an hour and 30 minutes, so it's paced good. The acting's good. It's just that the story is not the best. And some of the writing feels a little bit off. It tries to do that modern day culture thing, but it just doesn't work. So overall, it's not a great movie. It's not a bad movie, but it's just not a movie I'm going to watch again. So that's number 4. I don't have anything to say about that. Number 3, Black Adam. And as a disclosure now, everything in these movies I would say are positive. So with Black Adam, there was a lot of hype. This was Dwayne Johnson. This is the DC universe. This is supposed to be the movie that brings the DC hierarchy back to its place, where the DC universe is about to change. And this became the biggest movie of Dwayne Johnson's career, opening weekend wise. But there are some things that I did not like. The dialogue in this movie is really bad. The editing, some of the editing choices in this movie, the slow motion are awful. The character development feels a little bit off. The story sucks, but it was plenty of action, good performances, great charisma, and an all around moderate story, I would say, that isn't bad. Again, this isn't supposed to be the biggest movie that's going to help DC strive. This is just a movie that The Rock really wanted to do. And so I'm happy that he was able to do it. But also, I'm happy that he was able to get a project like this. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. And that's all I have to say. Number 2 is Amsterdam. This is a movie that came out in the first week of October and was supposed to be this big sort of Oscar bait movie directed by a man who directed other Oscar bait movies that did really well with critics. Has an all-star cast: Christian Bale, um, John David Washington, Alan Taylor-Joy, Rami Malek, Robert De Niro, Margot Robbie, and it was fine. It was good. I enjoyed it. I think that's the best way I've thought about this movie. I didn't hate this movie. I didn't loathe this movie. I thought it was fine. It does certainly have those problems where the mystery isn't as engaging, but I think you definitely gave a good impression of the film as a whole. And so the movie bombed massively. So they're rushing this thing to streaming on this Friday. I don't know when it's going to be on, maybe Disney Plus or whatever. But sorry, but yeah. So Amsterdam, a movie that at times feels a little bit slow, but a movie I thoroughly enjoyed as a piece. But the best movie of October by far has to go to Hellraiser. This is kind of um by default, I would say, because every single other movie I rated a B minus or lower. I gave this movie a B minus too, but I might want to bump that to a B because I did enjoy this movie. Thinking about it more now, I definitely feel like this film was the best thing that could happen to the Hellraiser franchise. It's a very slow paced movie in which it's 2 hours long. I was invested with the characters, I was invested with the story, I was invested with the Cenobites. Pinhead herself was great. Jamie Clayton did a great job. And so I feel like this film did its job. And if that's the case, and you are a diehard Hellraiser fan, then this movie easily goes for you. Like, I don't think that there would be anybody else who would be like, oh, this movie ruined Hellraiser for me because of this and that. At times, it feels a little bit sluggish, but it's a graphic movie. It's a well acted movie. It's a well written movie. It's a well taught movie. It is an all round decent movie. And so for me, this was the best movie of the month. Now, let's talk about the best part of why I love doing these streams, and that is to talk about the wilds from time to time. Because I love talking about why they thought this was a good idea to cancel it, to cancel the wilds. So let's talk about it. And I'm going to do every single episode. Oh man, I'm sorry. I'm not going to review every single episode. I'm just going to talk about every single episode and what it does for the franchise, not franchise, for the show and the legacy of the show and what it does for other people. So let's discuss on the show itself. On episode 1 of The Wilds, this will be a long talk because it is a hour-long show. So the episode opens with this main girl named Leah, played by Sarah Pigeon, and she pretty much just talking about, I was on this flight and I remember that there was this crash that happened and now I'm here. So how the hell did I get from there to here? And so right away we're introduced to her backstory. And every single episode kind of gives a backstory on each of the girls on the island. So you have our first girl, Leah, who talks about why she's in the position she's in, why she is sent to this island. And so her situation is about the fact that she read this book, she thought it was interesting, and the author comes in. She finds him attractive, and he's like 35 or something. She's 16. And so she has this mind to fall in love with him. And she drives him home, but then they get lunch, they get drink, and they start to develop a relationship with each other. And so you can see she's trying to gain love. She's trying to gain trust. And then she is about to tell him, actually, you don't need to say that I want to kiss you because I'm actually 18 or I'm not 18 yet. And she's about to send it, but then she doesn't. And so she's struggling with trying to find that perfect relationship. And so she's just like, nah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go for it. And so they kiss. And then we find out that she had her birth certificate handed to the guy. And so he finds out, oh my God, I made out with this 16-year-old. I'm going to go to prison. I don't want to go to jail. And it's like, you got to leave me alone. You can't talk to me or call me ever again. And that gets her upset. And now her parents are like, you're in a funk. Your relationship got off to a rocky start. And so you're going to be going to this retreat where it can help you get over this. And so we're introduced to all the characters. She is kind of like the girl who loves to read her book, the Jeffrey Delantis book, um, who was the guy she fell in love with. And then you're introduced with the others, and they apparently go in groups of two because you got two people from the same area. You got Tony, who's a basketball player, who's a very hothead attitude, played by Erina James. She's known with her best friend, Martha Blackburn, played by Jenna Claus. And she is kind of like this animal lover. She's Native American descent. She's really proud of her culture. And she's kind of like the sweet girl who doesn't like to get into fights all the time. And then you had the Tennessee girls from Texas, Shelby Goodkin, who's kind of like a Christian who competes in pageants and stuff. And I love this line from her. There's a lot of iconic lines in this show. So one of them is like, she's talking to one of the girls, and she's like, okay, I do real, I do family, I do Jesus, I do pageants. And it's just, the writing in this show is incredible. It's just so good. Was that me? I just heard like a, I don't know. Um, so then you're introduced to her other friend. I would say they don't hang out a lot, but it's the same girl that goes to her same school, Doc Campbell, who is kind of like the badass of the God, kind of like the tough girl, second tough girl. She's like, she sells drugs to kids in high school. She has a dad who's been very sick. She's taking care of him. And she's very caregiving. She watches a lot of TV in which she knows how to survive in instances where, like the one she's about to get into right now. And so that comes in handy. Then you had the sisters from New York, Rachel Reed and Nora Reed. And one of them is an athlete, diver, always ready to go for the big leads and do the sports stuff. And then you got Nora, who's kind of like the quiet girl, but she's also very smart, and she's always very considering of people. She's always very like the quirky person, kind of like me in a way. I don't know. And then you have probably my favorite character of the whole show, Fatin, Fatin Jamani, played by Sophia Ali, who is in Truth or Dare and Uncharted this year. And her descent, you immediately are met with, she's a boss ass, whatever you want to, you know what I'm talking about. For people who know that term, you know what it is. And so she is like, she's very popular. She hooks up with a lot of guys. She comes from a very wealthy family. Her parents are rich. Her mother's a real estate owner, and her dad's a bidder. And there's a little bit of backstory with hers, but I'm not going to talk about those yet. We just want to talk about her, Leah's, who goes to the same school with her. And then there's this other girl named Jeanette who goes by herself. And so they're all introducing each other. You know, they're all like, hi, how are you? They're good and stuff. And a lot of great lines are spoken. Um, my favorite line from one of the other girls is something else. that I don't think I can say it here, but I just, I don't know how that happened, but whatever. Yeah, see, that's a Sora for me. But I can't say it here, but it's hilarious. It's really funny. The writing, again, I said, is really good. It's really shows how people talk to each other. And so we are immediately also, we find out that the girl who loves to do the pageants and stuff, she carries around fake teeth. Um, so there's that. So then the plane crashes and everybody's stranded. Some people are on the island, some people are out in sea. And one of the girls, we see Jeanette. Leah finds her stranded on like a piece of luggage. She lifts up her shirt. She notices there's a huge bruise in her belly. She probably got hit or something. And they notice the island and they're all trying to find each other. And this is the moment where you find out like there's jealousy because Tony's best friend Martha is rescued by Shelby. Shelby gives her her clothes and it's like, I'm caring for you right now. And she gets jealous of that, which is a good turnaround later on to the show, which we'll get into later when I talk about it. And so they're all like trying to figure out, what do we do? We need a phone. We need to explore the island. And so we got Tony and Martha, or Tony and Shelby. They go out to explore the island. And Tony gets jealous. She takes a tree branch like and whacks it on Shelby's face. And so she gets a bloody like ear or something over here. Thus now she also she also feels like this is like I shouldn't be doing this with her. She's very scary. She doesn't like me, but I don't hate her. They try to find a phone. One of them has a phone, but it's low on battery and they need to call somebody, but they don't know where they are. So it's like, who do we call? And unfortunately, Jeanette dies from her wound because it spreads out all across her stomach and she dies out of nowhere. Just like she immediately dies. And so the girls, what they do to cope this is they give her like her phone and stuff. They give her all these things and she out of nowhere one of the girls starts singing Pink Razor Glass because that's what her ringtone was. And she told one of the girls, like, I am not afraid to admit that I've been listening to a lot of Pink. You know? Remember Pink? As a little joke right now. Remember Pink? Yeah, that's over with. Oh god, it was a 2010s moment, but so they sing it and they bury her because they don't want any predators to get around. And then they play a game of Never Have I Ever, and we find out a little bit more about the girls. We find out one of them has been intimate with another woman or another man. We find out one of them has been intimate with a bunch of dudes. We find out one of them is one of them has never had any man pleasure, has never had a boyfriend like that, and we also find out that one of them, and I quote this from the girl, the character. She got cut from the team, and she says, "Some girl on the other team kept fouling me, so I pissed in my hand and I threw it at her." Again, writing, it's right up here. It's not down here. It's up here. And so we get a little bit of good comedy with the characters. We get a little bit of sense and ease with the characters. And so we hear then at the end of the episode, we hear that there's a phone ringing and it's Jeanette's other phone. She has two phones. And so Leah comes up, she walks to the burial, she undigs her body, she finds the phone, and then she calls the only number that she recognizes, which, surprise, is Jeffrey Galantis' number, who's the guy that was the author who was too old to sleep with her. And so she's like, I need your help. I'm somewhere. It's like, no, no, I don't want you talking to me again. I don't care where you are. You are probably faking it right now because you're a teenager. I don't want you doing this to me again. And so he hangs up and they're stuck. And so then we're introduced to Gretchen Klein, the villain of this whole thing. And we find out that this whole crash thing, this whole crash of the plane is pretty much an experiment. It is a use to figure out what's really happening. And Rachel Griffiths, it's hard to pronounce her name, but she's technically the one who is the main lead or the main villain. She plays Gretchen Klein. So she is kind of like watching over them, and she finds out that one of the girls just died, and and she sees what she's done to them. And then the movie ends off with a song, and it ends like that. And so I think that this show starts out good. If I was starting this off, like if I was watching this for the first time in my life, I think the show starts out on a good note, and I can't wait to see the next episode. And I actually am going to give you guys a rating on each episode. So I'm going to give this episode an 8 out of 10. I think that the only reason why it's an 8 out of 10, or actually, no, I like this show. So 9. I'll go 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. And the only reason why it doesn't get a 10 out of 10 is because the motivation for like Ray for Leah doing this feels a little bit wrong. Like it's wrong for her. And so that's what I have to say. So that's my opinion on that relationship. So that's going to be it for this stream. So next weekend I'm going to be giving you guys a bunch of reviews, an episode 2 review. And this weekend is the weekend of Black Panther Wakanda Forever. And I can't wait for this movie to come out. I'm seeing it Friday in the city at Lincoln. And if anybody is going to see it in Lincoln, just no, but just whatever. I would love to know what other people have to say about it. And yeah, it's gonna be a good weekend. I'm also gonna try and check out the Steven Spielberg movie that's playing in select theaters right now, but then will be released worldwide on Thanksgiving, called The Fablemans. Then I'll post the 2 other streaming movies that I have. Let me see what those movies are. I might review. So I'm also gonna be reviewing 2 surprises. And I said I would get 2 surprises, but I couldn't. So I promise I will get those surprises for you soon. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Um, and I will see you guys next Wednesday. Western Star Movie Review signing off.